Let's avoid the bear traps.
Yeah.
This offseason. This is a PSA for our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
What are we not going to buy into?
This is from our guy, Ewan Kelly from Glasgow.
Ewan, as I said.
Yeah, not
Do you want to read the email?
Okay.
Just forwarded it to you.
Doesn't, yeah. Hi, boys. Just wanted to ask if there are media traps you guys know will be laid, but you want to state that you will avoid, i.e. the inevitable Sam Darnold looks great in the 49er system, but when the rubber hits the road, we know it will fail. Much love from Glasgow, as in Graham, Glasgow, Scotland. Ewan.
As in Graham, yeah. So, the Sam Darnold one is
That's the most obvious one, yeah.
That's a good one.
At some point, Sam Darnold is probably going to play games and look like a superstar within Kyle Shanahan's offense, and we are going to be hearing about how, I mean, you can just imagine the Dan O segment on ESPN in front of the giant computer screen with his tablet, just showing a play where Sam Darnold like hits a dude in stride over the middle on a post and saying, it was the Jets all along. Darnold just needed the right situation. Now this is the number, this is the guy. You can picture it right now. It's happening. And yet Sam Darnold will in fact remain Sam Darnold.
This whole segment is basically what's the narrative that Dan O is going to create that we're not going to buy into. That's really what's the media narrative that Dan Orlovsky is going to create on ESPN that we disagree with.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So that is a good one, the Sam Darnold thing, because that will happen.
So let's paint this picture. Brock Purdy's a little slow out of the gate.
The dude's 50-50 to even play with his wrecked elbow.
So Purdy's going to miss some time.
Right.
And let's say Trey Lance isn't ready to go week one for whatever. Sam Darnold's getting the start for 2 weeks.
I think it's entirely conceivable, given his career so far, that the 49ers simply elect to go with Sam Darnold over Trey Lance.
And I want to remind people that people bought into this last year. The last 2 years.
Every year of his career, in fact.
Sam Darnold in the first 3 games of each of his 2 Panther seasons was absolutely fantastic. And late last year, after a few good games, it kind of fell apart against the Bucks with the playoffs on the line. I know the stats weren't too bad in that game. With the playoffs on the line. And then against the Saints, where we went something like 5 of 16 for 43 yards and 2 picks in the last game of the season for 34 passing grade. So Sam Darnold's going to get a few starts for the Niners. I mean, coming out of training camp, the buzz is going to be huge. Mm-hmm. Sam Darnold, I mean, he's turned a corner.
Yep.
We're in year 6.
Yeah.
He's turned a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Shanahan has unlocked Sam Darnold's potential.
Yep.
The Niners are 3-1 and maybe 4-0. Few weeks into this, probably just 3-0. We'll stick with 3-0. The Niners are 3-0. Sam Darnold's got a passer rating of 119. He's feeding Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and all that stuff, and it's like, this is it. They have found the next. He's getting compared to Joe Montana. How did Joe Montana do in his first 3 games as a 49er? Not as well as Sam Darnold. How about Steve Young? Barely even saw the field, not like Sam Darnold as a 49er. And then week 4, it all comes crashing down.
Yeah.
So we're not going to buy in. Although, if Sam Darnold did play for the 49ers, how is he Shanahan-proof?
Is he Shanahan-proof? No.
Because we've seen everybody.
No, I mean, I think Kyle Shanahan.
Not everybody won with Kyle Shanahan, but they all had numbers and succeeded. The C.J. Beathards of the world put up numbers.
I think Kyle Shanahan is eminently capable of turning Sam Darnold into what looks like a useful NFL quarterback that in any other system would not be.
Yeah. So we're not going to buy into that one.
No.
What else do we not buy into?
Other people will do, in fact. So a similar narrative is going to form around 1, maybe 2 of the rookie starting quarterbacks. When you see them in training camp and, the bullets aren't live and they're just dropping dimes in there, the accuracy's great, everything looks fantastic. Preseason is probably, they're going to get the Zach Wilson preseason where it's like, wow, this just looks so efficient and just so much better than what was there before. And then week 1, like the switch flips and all of a sudden defenses are trying and the wheels fall off.
What are the worst, the most overrated preseasons in recent memory?
I mean, Wilson's is one of them.
Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? Daniel Jones goes like 29 for 34.
Well, that was
during the whole preseason.
Yes, that was intensified by the fact that like the Giants were like pulling receipts out for people and you were like, oh, you You thought Daniel Jones was a bad draft pick, huh? Look at this.
It comes back to Orlovsky again, though, because Dan was on ESPN, like, looking hard at the camera, just being like, Daniel Jones, I'm sorry, man. I didn't believe in you.
Yeah, apologies.
I was wrong.
Apologies were given.
I apologize for doubting you.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with your game. That was happening during the preseason. And look, Daniel Jones just signed a contract. Maybe everybody was right. But he's been, an average starter throughout his career, despite having the greatest preseason in history. On the other hand, we have seen preseason quarterback play where it's like Dak Prescott looked great right off the bat and looked like a thing. And that was true. And Jared Goff looked like he didn't even know the plays in the preseason, and that was a thing. His rookie season, he couldn't even complete a pass. So sometimes the preseason stuff is real. But I would say, Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones had the biggest preseason hype or best look in preseason that ended up disappointing.
I think it's more indicative of a bad preseason is probably an issue, whereas a good preseason does not necessarily mean a guy's going to be good. I mean, this is specifically a quarterback more than anything else. But I think that's like if you have a quarterback that you expect to be good going into the season and he struggles badly in preseason, that feels like a problem. Whereas evidently, if a quarterback looks fantastic in preseason and just comfortable and completing all his passes and blah, 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 that does not mean that he's going to be good once the real defense starts playing in week one. Particularly now when teams are not treating preseason with any kind of seriousness. Like the guys you're facing are second string at best for the majority of the time.
What about the training camp receiver who goes off?
Yeah.
So this is the Dante Moncrief for 9 straight years. Mm-hmm. This is
Romeo
Dobbs last year. And look, there's kernels of truth in this. Like Romeo Dobbs not only did look good, there were times during the season last year where he looked fine. But the narrative part of it was I was a little guilty as well. I bought in last year. Mm-hmm. I stepped on the bear trap. The Romeo Dobbs looks like Davante Adams. Kind of moves like him, kind of catches the ball like him. There's a lot of targets available in the Packers offense. Romeo Dobbs going to be an 85-catch guy and not completely replace Davante Adams, but the Packers are going to be fine. They've got 4th-rounder Romeo Dobbs. He's tearing it up at camp. Ask his teammates. They can't cover him. Who's the most impressive guy at camp? Romeo Dobbs. Can't cover him. Dude's open all the time. 7-11 even. Romeo Dobbs.
Aaron Rodgers was talking him up.
Aaron Rodgers was talking him up. Absolutely. So we're all expecting Romeo Dobbs to be an 85-catch weapon in the Packers offense. So this year, when you hear that, I don't know, which it doesn't even just have to be a rookie. This was a Bryan Edwards a couple years ago. And that was true as long as it's fourth quarter or overtime.
Auto.
Right? Mm-hmm. Bryan Edwards with the Raiders. Looks like the next Jerry Rice out there in camp. Gruden was talking him up, all the Raiders, and just never materialized.
Yeah, so don't buy into that one random name that's tearing up training camp as a receiver, completely untouchable. Who's it going to be? I'm not going to hold you to this, but who's your bet for that guy?
Well, it's a guy that we like. Tank Dell.
Tank Dell.
We're going to get reports. Tank Dell is uncoverable in Texans camp.
All right.
Can't find him. Better than I thought. Actually, I thought he was only a slot receiver because he's short, and then we put him outside. He's whipping outside corners too. Derek Stingley couldn't even hang with him in camp. That's what we're going to hear. Tank Dell is wide open all the time.
I might say more about Derek Stingley than it does Tank Dell, unfortunately.
It might. Hey, I mean, that was like the Hunter Renfrow ran that one route against Jalen Ramsey in camp. It's like, look at this. Hunter Renfrow with this, quadruple move on Jalen Ramsey.
Yep.
Tank Dell, do you have any other...
Yes, I'm going to give you two receivers that I think could be that guy. They're both from the same team. Either Rashee Rice, our SMU rookie for Kansas City, or...
That's already happening. It already happened in rookie minicamp.
Justin Ross is going to be the guy again.
Oh, a couple Chiefs. Yeah. Who's going to be the next 100-catch guy from Mahomes?
You're going to hear that Justin Ross is putting it all together after that redshirt year. Mahomes loves him. He's making all these insane acrobatic catches over people. He's the guy that nobody's been talking about that's going to step into that starting role and replace Juju and put up the numbers.
If Rashee Rice, that's the thing though. If Rashee Rice buzz happens, I'm I'm buying in. I'm like, of course he is.
Right. But
I
that's
can
why,
see it. And for all the question marks I had for Rashee Rice on film, I'm like, that dude's a baller.
That's why you've got to prepare yourself to avoid stepping in the bear trap.
One more name, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine with the Tennessee Titans. In part because I was there in person where I was pretty impressed with him, and he's going to have plenty of options or opportunities because it's him and Traylon Burks in Tennessee and a whole bunch of hopefuls, basically. Mm-hmm. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is going to be a good 2 for Tennessee, we're going to hear. He's going to be perfect there.
One more bear trap to avoid. I think there's going to be a team from the NFC South. So this idea of, you added Derek Carr, you could easily win the division. That division's terrible. One of those teams is going to emerge as better than the others. And they're going to go on a run, and they're going to have a very good record built largely off the fact that the NFC South has one of the worst strengths of schedule on paper heading into a season ever. Like how difficult their schedule looks right now. Obviously, this is to a degree unknowable, right? Because it's built off previous evidence, not future performance. But it looks like that entire division essentially has a cakewalk. And if one of them is just able to emerge slightly as being above average, they could go on a run where they have one of the best records in the NFL. And we're going to be hearing about them kind of the way we were hearing about the Giants or the Vikings last year, where it's like, they're for real. It's time to buy in. They're 6-1, blah, blah. And you're like, no, they're not. They're not good. They're going to get bounced. Like, they might end up winning 12 games. And then once they get into the playoffs, they're going to get shellacked by somebody that's actually good. This is going to play out for the NFC South this year.
I mean, it might not just be because of the NFC South or anything like that. That's a fair point. But last year's Minnesota Vikings and New York Giants. Now, they just happened to play each other in round 1 of the playoffs, which was interesting. The two teams that every data point screamed mid-level team. Mid, as the kids would say. Mid. But the wins said double digits, right? Everything said mid, but the wins said double digits. And even the Giants, they won a playoff game. So I think I don't even think it's a narrative thing. It's just the annual assumption that your team was you are what your record was.
Right.
And last year you won 10 games or 11 games or whatever it was, and then you got better, right? Every team got better this offseason. Therefore, you're going to, stack up a couple extra wins there.
But the narrative is specific to that division. There's going to be a team coming out of that division that has a record that looks like Minnesota or New York last year, where over the first 2 months of the season, first few weeks, it's like, ooh, look at this surprise by New Orleans or, Carolina or whatever. And then after 2 months, now all of a sudden the record is starting to get too good to ignore, and we're going to hear, it's time to buy in. That was the game. The last win against whoever, like some other crappy team, that was the game that means we have to buy into them now. They are contenders. They're for real. It's time to buy in. This is Derek Carr's year, right? And it's just look who they faced. Like, they've racked up a bunch of wins against crappy teams, and they're still not good. Like, this is prepare yourself. It's going to happen.
I'm not sure there's an equivalent to this one, but last year during training camp and everything leading up to the season, the Matt Ryan signing in Indianapolis had some of the most interesting think pieces. Just like, hey, last year we could barely get in and out of the huddle with that dude Carson Wentz, But now Matt Ryan's out there. He's like a coach on the field. He's smarter than everybody. He's changing plays. He's like, Frank, throw a drag route on this thing. Why don't we add a little adjustment to this play? Why don't we throw a tag in there? I'm Matt Ryan. I'm 38. I'm smart. Been around. He struggled just completing a pass last year as well.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't move under pressure, and he was getting old and lost it. I don't know if there's an equivalent this year, but I would just beware of like the grizzled veteran who's coming in and is changing the culture and the playbook and all that stuff if they've shown signs of not being able to play. Nobody's really
signed one of those players, right? The kind of aging guy looking for one last go around for a couple of years while they bridge to something else.
Well, then,
like Derek Carr is the closest, and he's way younger than that.
Carr's the guy. I mean, they invested in him to be the guy in New Orleans.
That's what I mean.
Is it going to be Andy Dalton? Is it Andy Dalton in Carolina? Hey, Andy Dalton might be our starter.
No, because he won't be.
He won't be, right?
At least not beyond like 2
weeks. We're rolling
weeks.
with Dalton.
But like the closest we come to the established NFL veteran coming in for one last go-round is Derek Carr, and he's like 32.
It's a young group of QBs now.
Yeah.
Is that it? Any other bear traps?
You're probably going to hear a lot of hype around Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy in Washington through training camp, just because, you know.
I don't know if that's a bear trap necessarily. It's just that it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Sam Howell and Desmond Ridder.
He's the classic guy where you might hear a lot of hype about him early, and then we're not going to have any idea until we're like, a few weeks into the season.
Miles ahead of where he was last year at this time.
Yeah.
Miles ahead. Like the dude could barely even tie his shoes last year. Now look at him spitting out full plays, audibling at the line. It's night and day. Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder. Guy didn't even know where his locker was last year. Now, command of the huddle. Commands the huddle.
Yeah.
Knows what everybody's doing on the field. That's what he does.